Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Tech problems already. Welcome to the Hot Poll podcast. I'm your host, Adam Steele, and joining me this week is the one and only Mr. Andy Ferris. How are you?
I'm great. I'm better than whoever that child is screaming in the background.
Oh yeah, that's my daughter deciding that her toy owl is keeping her awake. Yes.
I hate when that happens.
Yes.
But
Children.
luckily, I've got a good week so far, so I'm fine with the toy owls.
Good. I've only been woken up at 5:33 times this week. Yeah,
Ooh.
we're going through that phase where she comes into our room and demands that we either entertain her or that she gets in bed and kicks us in the face.
Classic. Does she do the 180? And then
oh yeah, 180
Good.
boof in the face. Yes. The only way I got her to sleep today is to put her in my bed and just watch her and just be like, sleep. So if I put her in her own room, she knows how to get out now, and she tries to wrestle the bars off the walls.
See, you need electrified cribs. That's what you need.
Yes.
Sorry, what's
crib.
the theme of this podcast? Is it music? Is it? Sorry.
Apparently, yes. So,
not Andy's parenting tips.
Although that would be a good podcast in and of itself. I have recently, well, this feels really weird because I'm talking with closed back headphones for the first time in ages. I'm wearing, if the camera will focus, camera, focus, please. Camera. Do I need to replace you? And there we go. The Slate Audio VSX. The virtual headphone system. They announced them on the Thursday, and I was like, ah! And immediately, any money that I ever had went straight out.
And how's the experience been so far? Give us a quick review.
So they're weird. They're really, really good, but weird. I'm getting used to it because I always wear Sennheiser 650s, which are open backs, so they're quite natural on the ear. These are about as closed back as you can get. They are sealed, like properly, like an airlock on the head, and they're really nice and linear sounding. But then you use the software, and it feels genuinely like you're in the room with the monitoring system. It's the most bizarre thing. But I've done 5 mixes with them so far, and they all sound better than anything I've done in a long time.
Okay, and I was going to ask you what the price was, but then I saw your drink. Is that a Aperol Spritz?
No, that is an old-fashioned. The camera's slightly warm. It's Gentleman Jack whiskey with sugar syrup, Angostura bitters, and a cherry, and it should have orange peel, but I don't have any oranges in.
Just the peel.
Yeah, the peel goes in the drink.
I've got an extremely old-fashioned, probably the most old-fashioned drink you could think of. just a gin. And what's the price of the Stephen Slate headphones?
Lots. They are £470. So I've seen headphones that cost more. But I've never owned headphones that cost more. It's quite terrifying, really. They do come with a nice case, which is fancy.
That's at least $80 right there. Look.
Yeah, it feels like a whole $10.50 worth of material.
And is it a detachable cable? Because I find that's important with headphones like that.
It's quite a cheap feeling cable, honestly. It's quite thin. The cable comes out, and I'll just show you on camera. I know it's going to be blurry. It'll never focus because this camera doesn't like it. I can't hear you at the second, but if I pull too hard, the sleeve comes. I'll do it from back here. The sleeve comes off the end of the cable, which is not the best. I was looking today on eBay for custom headphone cables, but then I'm a nerd. Custom things. I like custom things.
Of course. Who doesn't? Anyone who's watching this probably wants custom cables as well. Or custom egg omelets with vegetables and sweet and sour tomato sauce.
Ooh, nice. Yes, my viewers like to tell me what we're eating.
Oh, nice. Acoustic, hi, by the way. He said hello, so hello back. Or she.
Hello,
Acoustic, could be Alice.
Yes. But yeah, tonight, first thing we'll talk about is the news. So coming up, JHS have got new pedals. Chase Bliss have got a new reverb. Harley Benton have got new guitars because, of course, they have. Vox are trying really, really hard to make little pedals around those nutube things. The new tubes.
I do. I do know more than I should probably spill on that.
Oh, I find them interesting, but it's worth talking about as a news article because there's new pedals. Rupert Neve Designs have made a very, very expensive converter, and there's a global initiative to support visually impaired musicians called Finestra. So that's going to be interesting to talk about. So those are the news articles, and of course the obvious, which we'll talk about later on, is we are missing a legend these days. But I wanted to not do that as a news article. I wanted to have a proper talk about that. So before we do, roll the intro. And we're back. So, to be honest, I don't mind a little bit of swearing here and there, but when the title cards are on, they can't hear a word we say.
What they haven't noticed is I changed my grey t-shirt into a t-shirt that's exactly the same as the one that I was wearing just a moment ago, and I've given it away now.
Well, on OnlyFans.com. Could probably make some good money doing that.
Away. I mean, I've given away the.
Oh, you're giving the facts away. I thought you meant you'd actually
happy to give away my second grey t-shirt. It's clean-ish.
Yes.
So I like the font of your chat. That's wonderful. It's like a kind of superhero, cartoony kind of comic font.
I think it's actually called Comic, not Comic Sans, just Comic.
Yeah, I know my fonts.
Way. Yes, it's a very strikingly visual thing. But yes,
I like it.
It'll be easier to read in future because we're going all 4K here, ladies and gentlemen. Not today, not this week. But I've got things like this. This just arrived in the post. This is one of Blackmagic's converters that's 4K. They're significantly larger than the other ones, and yeah, they're a beast. But yeah, the studio, we're slowly inching towards everything being 4K. We're having the most ridiculous internet installed in a couple of weeks in the studio, where it's 500 megabits upload, which for the UK is ridiculous.
There's no chance of me getting that in. Like we're currently talking in our village. Like, do we need fiber optic?
Oh wow!
And I was sat in a meeting with me. Obviously, my interests are yes, and a bunch of old people saying, "What's internet?"
Really?
Oh my goodness!
Oh wow!
And it's I'm in Austria, if no one knows, so it was all in Austrian dialect. So I don't really think I got my point across. But yeah, we'll see.
I always get visions of the old sitcom "Allo Allo" when I think of somebody not quite speaking the language. Good morning.
Apparently, it's funny when I go to Germany and speak German because I have an Austrian dialect, which I guess is like, I don't know, someone with a Scottish accent going to London, or
yeah,
I don't know, some English accent.
The mental image of an Englishman walking into somewhere in Germany with a strange accent in German is just baffling.
Yeah, it happens.
Sure, it does. So let's begin with the news, and then we can talk about the main event this week, and then take questions from the audience. So let's move on to the news. The news. A lot's happened this week. So JHS have released the Series 3 pedals. Were you involved in this in any way, Andy? I know that a few of our friends were.
No, so if you want to move on to the next topic, that's fine by me.
Right, moving on. I watch all the JHS videos. I don't know if it's something you. Yeah, Josh is very charismatic.
I dip in and out. As a YouTuber, I don't get time to watch YouTube, so you know, I mainly watch Hot Pole Studios, and that's it.
Very kind of you to say. I know it's not true, but
no. May I give my verdict?
Sure.
Yeah, they look good. They sound good. What's not to like?
What's not to like? I mean, I do like the fact that this is significantly cheaper than anything else that they do. They're all $99, which is a big killer thing. And I don't know how they're making them handmade in their place at that price point, because that was always the justification for the expense, surely, was it's all handmade in America, it takes time to make, this is why it costs so much.
Well, they're trying to recreate or pay homage to EHX, Electro Harmonics, who are releasing pedals that are relatively cheap. Not Behringer cheap, but about $100. What happens is that John Cusack is making their pedals, the boards at least.
Right.
So, and in fact, I should preface that with what I think is happening. What I'm fairly educated to tell you,
right,
is that John Cusack is maybe also populating the boards, but they're being assembled by JHS.
Right. Okay.
As you know, there's more information to learn there, and I'm not 100% accurate, so please don't take that as gospel. But the reason and the way they're doing what you just said is by getting it done elsewhere by someone who can do it cheaper. Right.
Well, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, if there's a way for it to be made, I mean, there are a lot of, like, as a parallel example, a lot of most guitar manufacturers that now use things like CNC instead of hand making things, even at the highest level. I suppose if you can find ways to not have a master builder spend 100 hours just like sanding, doing the thing that is not the master part of it, then that's a very good way to keep costs down without necessarily sacrificing any quality.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. What do you think of the plain white minimalist Tate Modern style thing?
I love it. I think why not? I mean, of course, there's the difficulty in telling which one is which if you have more than one on your board. Why not? I mean, it has a style. It's been designed, and it's making a big statement by not having a design on it as such. But I don't know if I should say this. I think they're missing a trick. I think they could. No, I can't because it's not my idea. But I think that they could possibly have some custom artwork done on there.
Yes. Well, that could be like a special edition, or you could have somebody that do the artwork for you, or if you're artistically inclined, which I am not, then you could do your own. I mean, you give me a Sharpie in one of these, and I guarantee I can make it look worse.
Pretty much, yeah. I'd make a right dog's dinner of that. But yeah, I like it. The fact that it's not making a statement is making a statement. And it's another way to keep the price down, even if it costs the same amount to print black on there as it would full color. It's making a statement. It's just saying how understated it is. Yeah. And then I love Josh's pastel colors on his backgrounds. I think they're absolutely wonderful. His branding is on point.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, well done to Nick, who's like the producer of the YouTube channel, who does a lot of that stuff. He's very, very clever man. And
of course, I want the fuzz desperately.
Oh, of course. I would really, really like the chorus. I think, especially chorus and bass go together hand in hand when you want to be an obnoxious lead bass player like myself.
Is there any other kind, Adam?
Well, Glenn Fricker will have you believe that there is a second kind, but whether they are human or not is a different conversation.
Okay.
And yes, $99 each if you like the look of these. I really like the sound of these from the demos I've heard. Go out and get them. So, from Pedals, happy birthday, Nicola, in the chat, by the way. Happy birthday, Nick.
Happy birthday, Nick.
So, from Pedals to a pedal. That's also a white pedal with black writing on it. Chase Bliss, have you seen their Automaton, the
yes,
magical,
I have.
Yeah, I'm sure every guitarist who works with pedals has. And now they have what looks like some sort of Lexicon Reverb clone in the same pedal form factor. Now, this speaks to me far more than the preamp pedal, because I'm a sucker for a very good reverb, and especially as a studio engineer, I know the Lexicon reverbs inside and out because they are classics. They are the sound of hits from the early 80s, mid 80s. And to be able to have that in a pedal that's got the funky motorized things, which is just a cool factor, let's be honest.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah. My child is trying to ram her way out of her room by the sound of it, if you can hear that thumping.
I can.
Wow.
It's amazing. Stick some Lexicon reverb on that. You can have a hit on your hands.
Yeah. The next trap single. Doof, doof. Just have a ticking sound. And yeah, I really would quite like one of these, although I'm sure the price point is ridiculous. Oh, there's the remote for the original 224. Which actually the sliders don't seem too different, except that knowing the original 224, that was just the remote, and the actual unit was a 3-unit rack behemoth that weighed as much as the child that is making noise in the background. And there was just a cable connecting the two, and I think it had something like a signal to noise ratio of about 4.
Yeah, it's undoubted that the new version, if we can call it that, is going to be better quality. Hopefully, it doesn't lose any of the character you get with having such a noise ratio.
Yes,
but ratio. I said it
that's
incorrectly.
Probably why there was loads of reverb on the tracks, because it was the only way to get it heard whilst turning it down enough that it didn't sound like a snowstorm.
Damn. I'm a massive fan when companies take a form factor and then produce several different products, or not a form factor, but take an idea and then put that into other ideas. So with what they've done with the preamp and now they're doing the reverb, it's a very, very similar idea.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of R&D, of course, that went into the original design, I'm guessing, because it's brand new look. It looks phenomenal. But then my question is what they're going to do next. And it's once they establish that form factor, they can do pretty much anything, and people kind of want it. And if you can afford these pedals, in fact, it's kind of rude to call it a pedal. I think it's more of a studio tool. I wouldn't see that on a bar, dirty floor, floating around, with some gaffer tape and.
Oh, we all know that guitarist who's got loads of money and gigs once every 3 months and has the most ridiculous board, the Klon, and one of these and an automaton and 3 Timmies and.
Yeah, but it's going to be in a custom wooden case, and they're going to unhinge and unclip the hinges as they walk on the stage. And it's going to be temperature controlled, and as they lift it off, and they walk on with their custom guitar built by some guy that lives in the middle of Sweden and only builds one guitar every 10 years. With their, directional cables and all that.
Yeah, oh God, yes, directional cables for those directional electrons. Yes.
I thought that might grab you.
Yes. Oh yeah, that's what. Yes.
I've got directional cables. You have to just make sure the guitar's higher than the amp, and then the electrons just go downhill.
It's just gravity. Yeah, I love it. That's why I have my guitar so high.
Yeah, that's why bass players have it. That's why bass players must hold it up here.
Yeah, lets the tone trickle out quicker. Oh dear. Yes, so if you want one of those, they are £800-ish, which is a lot for anything that is, like you said, a pedal, but not. I mean, it's got MIDI control from what I can tell, so
it better have. What's the price on a used Lexicon? The 224, is it?
Yeah, let's have a look. But the answer is probably a lot, significantly more.
Because then if you're saving money, by getting one of these pedals, and if it sounds great or better than, then that's very much a reason to spend so much money. If someone really wants that Lexicon sound.
Looks like the answer is you just can't buy one. They just aren't out there.
Right.
So yeah, if you want that sound, get it in software.
Yeah. Get a plug-in or buy it. Isn't it Behringer mixers have them in these days, or is it?
They do actually.
Or is it Soundcraft?
No, I think. Oh, no, I think you're right. I think Lexicon is licensed to Behringer at least.
Yeah, I have an X Series and X12, I think it is, and I'm pretty sure I saw Lexicon in there.
Yeah, so just pull up the plate preset, and there you go. Job done. So, from a pedal to another pedal, MXR
Hey!
have made the most ridiculous tremolo. It's got 6 modes and a hidden secret. It killed a man. What
It
is this?
stabbed him, and then it removed the knife, and then it put it back in again, and then it did a little bit faster, and then a little bit deeper.
It put a knife in by accident, then pulled it out just because they didn't want to, and then just to be sure, they just put it back. And then they were like, no, I can't decide,
Oh, you're
can't
not supposed
decide.
to remove it. No.
Yes.
So the MXR M305, I only heard about this briefly. I've been very busy doing things like boring non-rock and roll stuff, like building guitar stands. I now have most of my guitars in my studio room, which has never happened before.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, they're flipping everywhere, but I can grab them to hand. It's great.
Sounds familiar. I've just done that myself.
I feel so good. I feel like I'm in a real place of music making now, rather than just a video studio where I make YouTube videos. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's nice. It's brightened the room a little bit. And yeah, so back to the main topic, the tremolo pedal. I'm a massive fan of tremolo. If my Fender Deluxe Reverb wasn't so noisy, I'd probably never switch it off and just play one chord and sort of swim around in that for a while.
Just leave it in the bedroom with the volume turned up in the corner just while you sleep. Just let that hiss go.
Gorgeous.
That could be quite a good white noise generator, actually.
Actually, it would. Try that with your, is it daughter?
Yes.
Yeah.
Bring the Fender Twin home and just leave it in the corner. Put a tremolo through it.
I want to see a video on this by Stefan Fast from the Pedal Zone. He must get one, and he must do a demo, and it will be insanely beautiful to listen to and watch.
Yes.
And then, of course, I want to see Ryan at 60 Cycle Hum just plug it in and dick around with it.
That is what he does. That is his way. And as it has always been, as it shall forever be.
I'd like to try one as well, by the way. And I know MXR listen and watch your podcast.
Well, you know more than I do. Cheers, MXR. Well, I'm really interested to see how the harmonic tremolo sounds, because I know that's quite a rare amp thing. But yeah, I mean, there's so many different types, one of which is MXR, which is different from the others, apparently.
I wonder what that is. And how are they doing 6? How are they doing 6 modes when there's 3 LEDs? Is it, if it's green, it's
green and red.
That one. If it's red, it's the other one.
I think so. It's one of those you just need to get to know it. Throw the manual in the bin.
You know something, mate? I'm not a massive fan of pedals that do a lot of things. I like it when, like, there's my SD1. It does what an SD1 does, and if I want something that does something else, I get another pedal.
Right.
Well, because mid-gig, or for studio use, absolutely different. That's a different situation.
Yeah.
But for gigging use, you're not really probably going to change it.
Well, that's true. I do find it depends on the price point. If the price point is reasonable, then I like something with quite a few choices to find the choice that I like and then leave it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, if that, say the harmonic one, for example, is really, really good, then fair enough.
Yeah.
But if the price point is like, well, you can just get something else, then get something else.
Yeah, if it's 6 times the price for when you're only going to use 1/6 of the options, yeah, I get that.
Exactly. There's a Supro one, and that's fantastic. And I don't have one currently, but it's on the list.
Didn't they just get bought by somebody? We covered that a few weeks.
I think they're distributed by JHS in the UK.
Supro D'Angelico just bought
Supro.
Really? Yes.
I really like D'Angelico.
Yeah, so that was a few months ago. So get in contact with D'Angelico and be like, hey, guys.
Well, I do know the guys at D'Angelico, actually. So
well then, as soon as we're finished here, time to make a call.
Yeah, right. Nice talking to you.
At which point they'll go, sod off, Andy. It's 10 in the evening.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm all up for it. I love the color, I love the look, and that is important.
Yes, if it's purple colored, it will be purple sounding, and everybody likes purple sounding pedals.
Of course. In fact, I have a video coming on purple pedals soon.
Do you?
Just because I happen to find 3 purple pedals in my selection, and it's immense fun to say purple pedals.
It is. Yes. And there's a secret mode.
The video that's
apparently there's an envelope mode as well.
Oh,
So yeah, touch sensitive tremolo. That could be really weird. That could make for some odd sounds. I wonder.
and I mean, it bothers me. It bothers me that they've called it secret hidden envelope mode, and it's all the press releases.
Yeah.
How is that secret and or hidden? It's just another feature.
Well, marketing is what it is.
I know marketing, but it's why lie? That's just lying.
Mm.
Does everybody want to know a secret? But it's not a secret, then, is it? MXR, send me a pedal, please.
Yeah. I'll tell you all about my secrets in my press release.
Yeah.
So, from pedals to guitars. So Harley Benton have made some very pretty looking Telecasters with Filtertrons. Nearly managed to say that right. Filtertrons.
Filtertrons.
This is very much my style of colour. I don't know what your opinion is on this, the transparent thing.
I've just had a Chapman Ghost Fret Pro come for a flying visit into my studio for a demo, and it looks like that red one in the middle. So it's something blood. And if it is roughly the same finish, which I'm guessing it will be, I love it.
Good stuff.
I dig it so much. I love the way it feels more than the way it looks. I do love the way it looks, but the way it feels, at least I'm speaking about the Chapman now. So if this is the same, because it's, I believe, sandblasted. They're actually, you can, it's 3D rather than flat.
Being called the Blast series, I would imagine it lines up. Stretch. But it's really interesting to me that they've gone for this almost super modern style, but with Filtertron pickups. What
maybe they just have them lying around.
Yes, this giant multinational company just someone ordered a pallet instead of a crate of these pickups. Well, let's make a new version of this guitar then. I wonder how many times
good. I like it.
I like that. I wonder how many times like manufacturing screw ups like that turn into an opportunity. It's like, I ordered 100 of these pickups, not 1,000. Oh, well, it means we're going to have to make a new range.
I'm sure it happens. Carl Golden is here somewhere.
Carl.
Hello, Carl.
Hi, Carl. How are you?
Hello,
Good
mate.
to see you.
Miss you.
Carl, I'll have to get you on the podcast at some point as well, mate.
Oh, yeah, that's it, Carl. You're done now, man. There's no getting out of it this time.
Yeah. Also, you've made it. Famous.
Yes. It looks good. I mean, look at that body. I know, of course, that guitar companies choose their best ones for photo shoots. It's interesting that if you look into the neck pocket, right where on that photo there, right where the neck, go left a little bit. I was going to point my finger there. what a div. Go down. There. Can you see that kind of bit there? That looks a bit untidy to my eyes.
It does.
And that's the bit that I often pay attention to.
Right. I wouldn't even look at that twice because, I mean, I probably wouldn't find myself up at the dusty end very often. But that's just a bass player thing, I guess. The price, though, £180 for this. Is that reflective of that price? I mean, is that something you'd let them get away with?
That's more than forgivable.
So I suppose at that price, then it's for someone like us who would look at that detail, joking aside, you could probably do a bit of tidying up yourself and put the time in for the cost difference.
Yeah, I wouldn't bother. It's just if I saw that, those are the sort of things that when I review guitars, you really have to look at, but it's always reflective of the price point. At 100, so for me, that's €200, give or take.
Yeah, it's about right.
You can't complain. Look at the rest of the guitar. If the rest of the guitar also had those kind of things, you can't complain at that price. Yeah. Any guitar that's under $200 should be allowed to not be perfect. I'd rather the money went into setup, choice of parts, and final quality control.
Now, for me, if that only had humbuckers instead of Filtertrons, that would be probably one of my ideal guitars. Because humbuckers are my thing. Even when they're tappable. I mean, it's very rare that I end up as a single.
Would you tap that?
I tap everything in sight.
Okay. I think I can't second guess Harley Benton. I mean, I've met him a few times, and he is a bit of a strange person. But
Mr. Benton.
Yeah, Mr. B, as I call him. I think having Filtertrons makes it stand out a little bit more. So it could
Yeah.
have humbuckers, but then it would be like, oh, that's just like that insert brand name here, you know?
Yeah, that would be like a modern Fender thin line, I think. But yes.
Kind of, yeah, but I mean, I think there might be a Chapman ML3 sandblasted, for example. And
Yes.
I have an ML. Yeah, here's just to reach the side. I mean, there's an ML3 modern.
Oh,
So we're
yes.
looking at two humbuckers there. If that had Filtertrons and was sandblasted, it would look a heck of a lot like that Harley Benton.
It would be worryingly similar.
Which is not a problem, not an issue at all. But maybe they're just trying to do something more original.
Yeah.
Marty V is asking, do those filler grains light up in the dark? That would be insane.
Yeah, depends if you spray it with glow-in-the-dark paint, I guess.
That's a really good idea. I bought some glow-in-the-dark paint, a little pot, and I've never really known what to do with it.
So would you put a single layer on and then kind of sand it back so it's only in the pores?
It's probably got a final coat on that for sure. So you'd have to sand back the guitar first, then put the glow-in-the-dark paint on, and then seal it again. Yeah,
I can see that being doable.
But what I mean is, if I was doing it from the ground up, you know, sort of plant an egg.
Yeah, I mean, looking at them, I'm not seeing too much of a shine on, so I can't imagine the finish is super thick anyway. So that could be good, because I've taken the finish off guitars before where it's been like 5 mil thick gloss, and you're trying to take it off with a hammer.
Have you ever done an Epiphone neck?
No.
Oh man,
Are they like that?
I nearly lost my sanity over that, and that guitar has not seen the light of day since. I didn't throw it across the room, but mentally it was, you know, through the window.
Yes. How's that trashed Stratocaster with the pedal going? Is that finished? I saw the video where you were putting it in the cavity.
I mean, how dare you call it trashed? I've improved it.
You've got to start somewhere.
Yeah, it is not finished, as in it doesn't have strings on it. But this week has been, again, I decided to not take this week off, but take this week off from making videos and get myself organized. I am so behind on making videos and being organized and scheduling stuff that I believe my time was better spent getting in the groove, as it were. But the Strat just needs strings. What's it called? Tuners. That's the word. So it's had something to. It's changed since that video, but it's not finished. But there's one more video.
Ooh, coming soon to a place near you.
And then a bass.
What, you're going to add a bass to it?
That's funny. Sorry, the reason I say is Michiel is here, and he knows about that bass because it belongs to him. And I've been working on it for 2.5 years.
It's been maturing. It's been settling. It's been,
Actually, it's a Harley Benton. I think it's a PJ4. Is that what they call it? The J, whatever it is, the cheaper P bass. And since it's been in my care, the neck has shrunk and the fretboard has shrunk, so it's now got sprouting frets.
Oh.
So it's actually better when I finish with it because it's pre-shrunk. like a good pair of jeans.
Yes. I do find that with high-end guitars that they've not had the time to do things like dry out, and they do warp and move and all that kind of stuff. Behind me, I'm not at the studio where most of my guitars are, but behind me I have 2 examples of either extreme. My number 1 bass, which is a Squire, where the neck had a big lump in it after the first 6 months, because it dried and warped around where the screws go into the neck and actually rose up there. Had to have it completely reset up, but that originally cost me about 300 quid for that guitar, for that bass.
Which series is it? Is it the Vintage Modern?
It is the Vintage Modern. It's one of the early Vintage Moderns. Oh, vintage modified, yeah. So it was
Modified,
one of
yeah.
those, but it's like Trigger's broom at this point. Apart from the wood, it's entirely new.
Shit, I got one of these.
Hey,
That's the classic vibe,
nice. Yeah, looks good.
which I've done stuff to.
Good. And then, of course, there's the opposite, which is my PRS Tremonti, which is wonderful and has never had to have any work done because it took them a year and something to build it, because they would leave the neck, in an air-conditioned room and all that kind of stuff, which sounds really pretentious and wanky. But honestly, it makes the difference in a really high-end build, because I can take it to another place and it's not knackered. Yes.
I would very much like a PRS Tremonti.
Yes. What, do you want me to send it to you?
No, not that one, of course. Not that one. That wouldn't be fair.
My favorite
But if
guitar.
if you're insisting.
God, the insurance alone would cripple me. Moving on. So, from the normal to the bizarre, Solar, which is, of course, Ola England, is making new Limeburst guitars with hints of dime slime. So they're making these absolutely obnoxious colored guitars. So if you want to stand out on stage and be that kid who goes and just stares at your fretboard and doesn't move the whole show, this is probably for you.
I dig that so hard.
Yeah?
That's so not me, but I love my quirky looking guitars. I like surf colors. I like sunbursts. I like offsets. I love. I like pretty much vanilla stuff, but also seriously quirky things. And that is quirky enough for me to say yes, I want one.
It is a bit. Yeah, it makes a statement. That's for sure.
I just like he looks like a Jolly Rancher.
Yes.
I like the edge. You can see that very, like on the V shape, for example, you can see it's more exaggerated. You can see that bevel is very straight. It's so modern, but the headstock puts me off, if I'm honest.
Yes. Lethal from multiple angles.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd be extremely dangerous with one of those.
Yes.
And also they're big, which makes me look smaller.
Yeah, someone in chat just said they look very small. They are not very small. Explorers are big. Flying Vs are big.
To the person in the chat, that's a picture.
Yes. And these are 999 euros each, which isn't the cheapest. But they come with a Floyd and a proper Floyd, which means you can be permanently out of tune if you so desire. And dive bomb everywhere. The headstock looks like an elf shoe. I can see that.
If I cover up the head, I mean, I don't mind the headstock, but as a guitar reviewer, as a job sort of put the job hat on, dig it. That's fine. But because I love the body so much personally, I want the headstock to be more extreme. You know what I mean?
Oh, you want the BC Rich Irma Gerd. Yeah,
I want it Irma Gerd. I want it to be more deadly. I want it to be so deadly you can't even look at it.
No, it'd be the first thing I would be taking the sanding belt to, is just soften that off, I think. But that's just me.
Sharpen it.
Get a whittling knife and just... What are you doing? I'm tuning my guitar's effectiveness.
More, what's the word? Airflow over the headstock equals more tone.
Yes. More streamlined. Yes,
That's the word.
I've played loads of weddings where you've got drunk women coming up to you during the show going, can you play this song whilst you're playing? And having a really sharp end would be like, go away, punk. Oh no, she's hurt. Somebody help her. Carry on the song.
How did that happen? I've actually used a Telecaster as a weapon before, and it's very, very, very enjoyable.
Yeah, poke, yes. It's one of the best things for me about being a frontman / bass player is I've got a much longer neck to keep people at distance with. Go away.
You
want to
get when cars have those blades on the hubcaps
Oh yeah.
like that? You want to get some of those on your tuning pegs.
Tuning pegs, other end of the body, on a glove that I'm wearing. Why not? Just go away.
Headbands.
Yeah.
Antlers, that's what you need.
Extended spiky shoes that I can just keep people at bay with. Yes.
Winkle pickers.
Yes. Spiky winkle pickers. Lethal pickers. Yes. Moving
Winkle
on.
stickers.
Yes, I like it. So, on to the pedals that you know more than you can say about. The nut tubes from Vox. They now have made the Valve Energy series, which look rather interesting, and hopefully they can do a bit more with these the new tubes in these pedals than they've been kind of limited to with some of the other designs. Because when it was first announced, it came in a tube screamer pedal, and that's always going to be bad news because people are expecting a tube screamer, so you can't do anything with the tube really that isn't just a tube screamer in that context.
Yeah, because
I'll be
it's
interested.
The tube screamer. It's not got a tube in it, so by putting one in it, sort of feeds that myth that it has one in it.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? I did play the new
tube squared screamer.
Yeah, the power of 3. I love the design of those. I'm going to have an immediate problem with getting my fingers into that EQ. So I have a bit of a word. Sorry, I'm very tired today. I'm terribly sorry. My vocabulary is through the whatever it's called.
It's all right. If you start speaking in Austrian, then I'm sure that somebody in the audience will understand.
A pet peeve, I believe, is the words I'm using. Like, why put knobs that close? Like, again, as a studio device, if you're at home messing around, fine. But live, if I need to switch that around, that looks like it would be tough to say cut the tone cut or middle without knocking the bass or treble.
Now I have tiny little fingers, so I'm just like get in with my precise little tuning.
You don't say tiny, you say precise. I've got precise fingers. My Mac just asked me if I wanted to restart. No, thanks.
Now seems like a perfect time.
Yeah, but my favorite look is the Copperhead drive. I'm so excited by that.
I'm interested in the actual sounds of each one more than anything because I genuinely do not care what they look like. And I'm that type of guitarist where I'm like, okay, looks nice. What does it do? And then
naturally, the only reason I went for looks is because that's what we're looking at, quite literally.
Yeah.
I think for me, sound and reliability go up, and price point, of course, because it's all relative. Sound and reliability go above everything, but looks do come in with it for most people, including myself.
Ooh, these could be.
There are some kind of definitions. Okay, they're quite expensive. So I just saw Vox. There it is. It's the AC Mystic Edge is based on the AC30 amp.
So the red one, unsurprisingly, is the AC30 tone.
Right.
The cutting edge is the metal one, which has got a knob that says tight.
Oh yeah.
Oh
bright yes. Bright knob makes me think Fender, but
they all have a bright knob apart from the cutting edge one, so it's bright or tight.
Oh yes, bright or tight.
Those are your options.
Distortion of let's just read the internet, shall we? Vox states that the drive recreates the classic full stack amp tone used for the powerful sound of hard rock in the 1880s.
Marshall. It's a Marshall.
Yeah. It's a JCM.
Yep. As the name suggests, the Silk Drive is designed to give you a more refined boutique vintage amplifier style overdrive dumble with valve amp style tube compression weighing heavily in the drive dumble tone. According to Vox, the Silk Drive covers from warm Stevie Ray Vaughan cleans to bluesy, overdriven tones from John Mayer. Yeah, and perfectly expresses the subtle nuances of your expensive amp. The cutting edge is metal. That's all that paragraph says.
Yeah, the cutting edge will burn your face off.
Yeah, which means it'll sound terrible because it'll scoop all the mids, and people will think it sounds good until they try and play with the band, and then be like, "This pedal's terrible."
Took me years to find that out.
Oh, again, mostly being the bass player in the band, I found that out far quicker than they did. It's one
Why
of
is
the main reasons that
everything
I ended up in production.
I can't hear anything. Yeah.
Yeah. I would be there with a kind of, fairly clean bass tone, listening to everybody else going, no, no, no. Right, what do we change on your equipment to make you sound good? And that philosophy has stuck with me for 20 years. Oh, that's not a cherry, that's ice. Ow.
That's good podcast. That's good pod.
Oh, yes. And it looks like Marty's cat it looks like my cat had a bath, he says in chat. Which I'm assuming he means...
You must be talking about the copperhead.
Yes.
That's why I like it.
I
like my cat bath tails.
I would be interested to try something like the Copperhead into, the Two Notes Cab M with its preamp and power amp simulation and everything. Yes, one of the very same. There is one sat in my studio, which I should probably bring home because it doesn't get used at the studio because I have the actual amps. And of course, I could put that.
These coming, these pedals.
Yes.
I don't even know if I should say that, but they're coming to the studio possibly next week. And I will be seeing if I can find any mids with that cutting edge.
Oh yeah, start with the mids on full and the tight on no, and see how you go.
I'm going to see if it compares to my metal zone, of course.
Oh, of course. Everybody worth their salt as a metal zone.
A Rev G3. Really, I know I'm super late to that party, but my goodness, is that a good pedal?
Oh yes. I actually don't have a G3. I have a G4 pedal, and that's amazing. That's got so much squishy gain on tap, and I like squishy gain. I think out of the two of us, I'm the more high gain person. Really. Yeah. Donation from Al. Thank you, Al. Always appreciated.
Can I call you Al?
Well, yes. As long as he calls you Betty.
Thank you. There we go. Now we can continue.
Sorry, that just took a minute for my mind to process. Quick.
Hey.
My mind just went, My mind actually went, you're out of whiskey. And the rest of me went, no, don't get another one because then we'll never finish the podcast in one piece.
Uh-oh. So
let's move on. So this is a piece of software that really intrigued me. This is Roland's 808-303 Studio. So it's a classic drum machine and classic bass line machine in a software side by side on a web page. Let's see where that web page is. I'm going to copy that into the chat. Because, of course,
because everyone's going to leave and just start making beats.
Well, they all make beats anyway. I'm sure half of my audience are making beats on the side whilst listening to the podcast.
True.
Yes.
But this one's going to have bass in it.
Yes, which means that I'm redundant, but never mind. Again, why I went into production.
Make some beats live. Come on.
I'm tempted.
Can you route that audio through the chat or not?
Actually, yes. That's really impressive. Where's the play button? Start.
I think it just did with my voice.
Yeah, I don't think you can hear that, Andy, but
I can't now. I'm going to judge by the way your face looks. How good that sounds. I'm judging this. Sounds pretty good. If you're doing it, I'm going to do it.
That's quite enough of that. That was hilarious. But I could just hear squelchy noises.
I love a good squelch.
But yes, the link is there for people to click buttons and squelch. So, moving on a little further.
But before you do, I just want to do one beat.
Oh, I can hear it in the headphones.
Oh, it's squelched. Real squelchy. Okay, I'm done. Sorry.
Yeah, it's fun, isn't it? Squelchy, squelchy.
It's really fun. I'm going to waste a lot of time with that. So I'm going to do a lot of research with that.
Research, yes, research. Maybe you should make a backing track for a song out of that, actually. That could be interesting. Try and play guitar over it. In fact, I'll make the most ridiculous bass line in there and get John Brown to play along on guitar.
Sounds like that sounds a lot like Queen, what you're singing there. Radio Gaga.
Actually, yeah. Yes. So
now it's like you're saying Papadum.
Papadum. Yes.
Which makes me very hungry.
Have you not eaten, Andy?
Gotta get Papadum in Austria.
Oh no? Do they not have good curry houses over there?
Not like they do back in Blighty, mate. There's one opened recently around here. Or maybe it's closed now because I haven't been there for many, many months.
Mm-hmm.
But it was good. But it's not the same. It's made for the Austrian palate.
So
when
it's like schnitzel curry.
It's all about food. It's no, but it's curry schnitzel. It's just like tamed. You know.
Yeah, it doesn't actually taste Indian anymore. Yes. I get it. So,
let's talk about luffs.
Let's talk about luffs, because everybody loves talking about luffs. And so the loudness wars are ever pressing, and this is a new plugin from Adata, remember? ADPTR? No, I don't think that's what that stands for.
Adapter?
Analog Digital Peter. I don't know. I'm making this up as I go along. But yes, there's the audio Streamliner, which can check your... that's a better view. Your loudness numbers and your dynamics, but can also, at the click of a button, tell you exactly how your audio will sound through YouTube or Tidal
that
or
is
SoundCloud.
Useful.
Yes. So like on SoundCloud, for instance, you notoriously lose all the high end. And knowing that ahead of time means that you can check a lot of that kind of stuff, which is useful, very useful.
So would you master that for SoundCloud and then do a different master for, say, Bandcamp?
Maybe, I don't know. Maybe if I was being very, very, very particular. I mean, for SoundCloud, all you do is you just crank the volume to about -2 LUFS and then mumble a lot over a rap. But that's SoundCloud for you.
That's my experience. Not since they started charging. But my question that first came out when I saw this was, what does that do that Isotope Insight doesn't do? And then you answered it within half a second. Yes,
well, I was thinking the same thing, and it's also got a reference thing in there, so you can A/B a reference in there because that's always useful. I'm quite a well-known Isotope user, and this just has a little thing. I recently got the Plugin Alliance Mix and Master bundle. It's $15 a month, and this comes in it. So it's funny. They're like, oh, it's $170. I'm not paying that. It comes with a bundle. I can have it in with all the other things like the Shadow Hills mastering compressor and all the SSL stuff and all that nice without paying any more. Yes. So yeah, I'm not paying outright for plugins if I don't have to these days because that would be silly. No.
I'm cool with what am I trying to say? Of course, cool with buying software. It's necessary. But also, I've recently become more cool. Words are good. More excited and more comfortable with monthly subscriptions, which I wasn't so much in the past.
Right.
And now I think, well, it kind of makes sense. Like Adobe for me is the killer.
Yes.
I've gone on to Final Cut, for example, for video, but Photoshop, I spent so long learning Photoshop that, I think it's almost a problem to go away. But I think that $15 a month, and I'm going to have to plug in Alliance monthly. I'm going to look into that.
Yes. Well, pro tip for you then, Andy, if you are only using Photoshop, you can get Photoshop from Adobe separately. You don't need to pay the full bundle. Oh, that is what you do, right? Yeah,
it's something like $20 rather than
40.
But the problem is, I would like. They don't do bundles of two. No. I want Audition and Photoshop. That's all I want.
That's okay. I've never used Audition, never gelled with it, and I've been an Adobe Cloud guy since day one. So it's literally when the Creative Cloud came out, because I don't know if you know, but before I did this, I was a media guy. I'm a video editor by trade.
Well, I was on Cool Edit Pro back in the day,
Right.
and that evolved into Audition, which I didn't know, but I started using Audition and thinking, this seems awfully familiar, and I was instantly good at it.
Yes.
And it turns out it was Cool Edit Pro many, many, many years ago.
It was indeed.
So yeah, I really dig it. I like I don't know. It's like any DAW or any software. Once you get to use it,
Yeah.
it works. If it works for you, it works.
Yeah, quite often it could be much quicker to go to the thing you know than spend your time relearning on a new platform, depending on what it is you're doing it for. Absolutely.
I'm saying that I did learn Final Cut in January, or I'm still learning, I should say. But that crossover, that was hard.
Right.
But ultimately more successful, more fruitful.
Oh, that's good.
More efficient.
I'm very much locked into Premiere at this point because it's what I've known for a decade at this point. So like,
yeah,
it's one of those things where every keyboard shortcut is just built into my left hand now. Yeah. So it wouldn't be worth me changing, but yeah, I get that. I mean, people say, oh, at this point you've paid this much money for it, and like, yeah, at this point I've not paid for a single upgrade outright, and if you saw the number of videos I've produced with it, you'd be like, oh, okay, fair enough then. Yeah,
exactly. When you put it into those terms, exactly.
Yeah. So yes, from expensive software to ridiculously expensive hardware. Rupert Neve Designs have made their new AD converter with analog drive paths and limiters. This is very much a master bus limiter converter for those very high-end rootin' tootin' falutin' analog people with their mixing desks. And
this doesn't even tickle any part of me, this thing.
Interesting. I would quite like one of these, but I definitely won't pay the money because it's $4,000.
It wouldn't absolutely. If the and as for every piece of gear, if it is an investment for business and it makes sense to have one, and will improve your final product, then go get one. But for me, that would do so little to my final product that it's an unnecessary spending.
But you'd have that Neve sheen, or as they call it, the silk.
I could just plug it into one of the new Vox pedals.
Yeah. Run it through the left side, then the right side.
Yeah. I just get two, for efficiency.
Yes. Run your entire mix through the Marshall stack in the Vox pedals. That would be a tone to behold. So yes, Warren Hewitt was demoing this on his channel, and I was watching it going, is that it?
Oh.
I mean, it wasn't bad, but it's like, yeah, you put your sound in here and it limits a bit. And it's like, yeah, I've got limiter plugins. It's like, all right. Moving on.
I know we're both heathens, but yeah, that's exactly how I feel. Stick a plugin on it. It makes my stuff sound like it should sound for my job. However, on the other side, if you're in a studio and someone has a Neve console thing or a Neve rack unit, then it adds that mystery, that mystique to a studio, and therefore you can charge more money.
Yes, that's true.
It ain't for heathens like us, mate.
Yeah, I was in John Brown's studio, went up to see him recently, and he's got a nice big rack full of stuff. And you look at it and you go, ooh, and then you go, why? Can do all this in software. All right, cheers. But that's just me.
Crikey.
I do believe
Can't believe you said that.
It's worth spending the money, I think, on getting really good sounds going into the box. If it's been recorded well.
Sorry.
Oh, smooth.
That went down the wrong way.
Wait. And breathe. So yeah,
Lee Fuge is in the house. That's what happens to me.
Lee, hello. Good to see you.
All right, man. I'm good. I'm alive.
Yeah.
Oh, it was good. Like when you fall out of bed, or you don't fall out of bed, you're dreaming, and then you think you fall, and you go, like that.
That kind of near-death experience.
Yeah, that was one of those. Then
body just released a little bit of serotonin.
That's my portion for the week.
Yes. And last but not least, I found this very interesting. Finistra is a global initiative to support visually impaired musicians. So, this is a news article. So they were based in Riga, Latvia, and the main focus is the synth lab created by T Studio, which will manage donations of instruments and assemble systems and workshops. I thought this was really kind of cool that the musical community is reaching out to empower people. Yes. I have worked with a blind musician who was incredibly talented, I have to say. But they weren't into synths and that kind of stuff because I suppose that wasn't something that was available to them, which means that the horizons are somewhat limited. And I do find this fascinating that, opening people's horizons is a huge thing. I think that's very, very good.
I used to work as a community musician, and if anyone has ever experienced a moment with a person or a child, in my case, where their ability was very limited by either movement or sensation, or may it just be hearing. So we work with kids who, for example, were blind and deaf, and they would just go by vibrations.
Right.
And if you've ever experienced someone experience music, it's an insane joy-filled moment where someone just suddenly connects. And I can see this picture with this guy twiddling knobs, and to have so much control over something must be a great experience. This Finestra seems anything that's doing something like this must be good. Firstly, and opening that up and just getting a press release out there, just making sure that people know this is going on. Music, I love the way music moves people, and that's the reason we do it, I guess. And it makes life better. And I think people that are visually impaired can really, really benefit from music, and anything that makes it easier would be great. I mean, it must be tough. I have no idea. My only recollection is I went to a thing called a blind brunch. It was a restaurant run by two visually. I'll say blind because it's Austria and there's no PC here. It was a blind brunch, and that's what it was called.
Right.
And it was completely dark. So you went in, and you couldn't see anything.
Right.
And the waiter and waitresses were both visually impaired, to keep it PC.
Okay.
So they were very accustomed to this room, and I was sat there with my family, and apparently there's food on the table, but I don't know. And then the woman said, "Does anyone want coffee?" I'm like, "Not really." So from that short experience, which was amazing, and I really enjoyed to have that. I like to eat with my eyes closed, which looks super weird, but I recommend you try it. And I do it with my kids because then you really, really enjoy the food. Not saying that if you have less vision, your other senses are heightened. But to a certain extent, when you're overloaded with sensory or sense, I guess, then there's too much going on. So I don't know what I'm getting into or getting out of here, Adam. But
no, I think
what I'm trying to say is I think it's good.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny that whenever I play live, especially when I'm singing and playing an instrument, I find myself a lot closing my eyes. I very much have to stop myself from doing so I don't look completely weird and pretentious to the crowd. But it's definitely to try and focus on the 3.5 things that I'm trying to do at the same time. Concentration is a fascinating thing, and by taking one stimulus away, you can very much focus on other things.
Kind of like when you're in the car and you turn the radio down when you're trying to find where you're going.
Yes. Yeah, it's
maybe
clarity. Yes. One thing that I did notice is that the particular artist I was working with, who was visually impaired, I was doing a lot of the session playing as the guitarist, and they could tell if I was a quarter note out at any particular point. The sense of pitch was just outstanding. And I suppose it's, definitely a clarity thing. It's nothing else to distract. Even in a studio session where it was, here's the music, now you play. Every little thing was laid evident. Yeah. It's very fascinating. Yes. Anyway, that was the news. So I think it's about time to talk about the elephant in the room, the major news event that didn't feel right being covered as a news event. And that is, of course, the passing of Eddie Van Halen. So, yes, a very sad moment for all of us in the rock community. It's funny that people I know have been absolutely devastated. I don't know if it's just because of my musical upbringing, but I was less directly musically connected to Eddie Van Halen than a lot of other guitarists that I know. But almost all of my guitar heroes were very directly connected to Eddie, and it's been interesting hearing the stories of everybody who I look up to, and them all saying that he was very much the one that defined music for them. I don't know. Have you been a big Eddie fan?
You couldn't have chosen the worst guest in the world to talk about Eddie Van Halen, because it's been a very, very different experience for me, the passing of Eddie, because I like the way you put it, that you were not directly affected by his music. And I have to say that I'm exactly the same as that, but probably even less directly affected.
Really?
There's no denying that, modern guitar was kind of, he was the genesis of that, and he put things together that hadn't been done before, or at least hadn't been done in the forefront of music.
Right.
I've experienced this and the passing of Eddie through other people, and seeing how much it's affected them. So mutual friends, Jamie Humphries.
I was going to mention Jamie. He's been
Steve
devastated.
Boston, and they are truly ripped apart. I've seen many people that are ripped apart, and it's firstly, it's very sad, and it happens. But I can't say I don't feel any. What I stayed really out of it. I saw with social media and as a guitar, guitar representative, a guitar lover.
Yeah.
I felt I wanted to. You have to kind of say something. You can't just ignore it. But I had nothing to say, and there's a lot of words coming out of my mouth for someone who has nothing to say. But what I really, really am hinting at is that his passing. Him as a musician did not directly affect me, as you put it. But I got into his music about 2 summers ago, and it would be my Cutting the Grass music. So Van Halen, first album in 1984. And it made Cutting the Grass a really enjoyable experience, so much so that I did a very, very good job. So, even if I do say so myself.
Did you end up cutting particular kind of odd stripes across the... That would be the perfect tribute.
No, but I wish I had. Setting 3, setting 2 for this angle. That's a great idea. There's something else I'd like to mention, but I'm going to go back to you before I do that, because it's slightly less positive. But yeah, as a guitar player, of course affected, but I feel extremely unqualified to comment, as not a direct fan is the wrong word, but not as a direct appreciator.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Not every guitarist, especially from kind of my age, mid-30s and younger, didn't necessarily have a direct connection to Eddie, but in my house there's always been my parents' house, there was always a very varied musical output, and we only had 2 Van Halen albums, which were played as often as everybody else. One was the Van Halen 1, which of course is the defining album, has Eruption and Running with the Devil and Ain't Talking About Love, all that kind of, the classics. And the other one was for Unlawful Carnal Knowledge, which was the Sammy Hagar era. And I really enjoyed that album, which, to a lot of people is, heresy. But a lot of the kind of the mid-80s Van Halen stuff did pass me by. But then I came back to it later on because, like I say, a lot of my heroes, John Petrucci from Dream Theater, Steve Vai, Joe Satriani, especially Satriani, who was really getting big in the mid-80s. Eddie had only really broken out 5 or 6 years before that, so he was very directly influenced there. And it's interesting to see how all the guitarists that I look up to, you can see their styles change over the years as Eddie's influence grew and grew and grew. And yeah, he's definitely left a mark on rock music that will never be undone. That is for sure.
No, he was more than a guitar player. He was a builder, a modifier.
Yes.
And he improved things for what he needed. So he very much understood the instrument and the mechanics of the instrument. And just by building his Frankencaster and then putting all these things and ripping pickups there and doing all the things he did.
Yeah.
And then I don't know. It's almost as if you only get a few of these people in the world ever, and he was one of those people that was exceptional. And I'm qualified to say that because I can look at the guitar, the Frankencaster, the Frankie with the stripes and everything. It did so much, and it's become more than iconic. And maybe he wasn't recently so much in the pop world, but certainly, as you've just said, his influence is everywhere still. And I think he's one of those musicians and people who was still having a very clear influence, even though it wasn't him directly. So, through other players, for example, and I was hearing that. My first experience of Eddie, and for many, many years, my only experience was the movie Back to the Future, which absolutely changed my life. And the Johnny B. Good moment is one of the reasons I play guitar, probably the most influential. But the moment where Marty McFly is dressed in the radioactive suit and he tries to wake up George McFly and puts the Walkman on and it says Edward Van Halen and there's this crazy guitar noise, or it's just, I don't want to say just noise, it is noise rather than music. It's a selection of sounds designed to wake someone up into a nightmare that's born in the 50s. What possibly effect could that have on someone who has no idea what that is? And as a guitar player, I was very much, I felt that sort of technique and that level of skill was unobtainable for someone like me. It seemed superhuman. I didn't connect with putting the work in to actually getting the result. Mainly because I grew up with grunge and it was more a case of power chords and expression rather than technique. There was, I still have very limited technique. And so Van Halen, Brian May, who was a massive hero of mine, I just put them on this pedestal,
right,
and never really considered myself anywhere in the same genre or family or group of people as them. And that's changed as I've got older. But yeah, I as someone who wasn't really that influenced by Eddie Van Halen, then it's very interesting and saddening to see the effect his passing has had on the guitar world.
It's been, to me it's been unsurprising really how big the reaction has been, because every guitarist that I know who is a quote unquote serious guitarist, if you say the words Eddie Van Halen, even before this week, they suddenly fizz with excitement. And they all suddenly just agree, best guitarist ever, defined an era. That was before now. So it's not as if he was some like long forgotten thing where suddenly everybody's kind of, now coming out with some sort of hollow tribute of, oh, yeah. No, everybody genuinely believes what they're saying this week, which is really good to see.
I have to disagree there. I've seen, and this is the negative thing that I didn't want to talk about at the beginning, but I've seen things that I think are ingenuine. Is that that's the word, right? Isn't it?
Disingenuous, I think.
Disingenuous is again words. I it's something within me that when someone dies, someone in a celebrity, or celebrity is the wrong word, a musical influence, someone who had, like David Bowie, for example, obviously.
Yes.
A massive influence, and then we've lost so many people in the past few years, so many legends of music, for want of another word.
Yeah.
That I suddenly see people coming out of the woodwork with like, I've always been a fan of this, or it seems to be profiteering. And I'm not going to name any names, but working in the YouTube community, there are a few people I've seen that, for me, I can just see sadly the pound notes rolling in their eyes, and it makes me angry, and it upsets me that people seem to be profiting, and sometimes people, sometimes brands, which is why I wanted to stay silent. Not saying that I'm better or gooder, righteous or anything like that, but
the way I see it, those businesses and those people were always going to do that anyway, no matter what the situation, because there are bad people, or at least companies with questionable motives out there, and I've almost made peace with that, and I'm like, I see you for what you are. I'm just going to ignore this. And I mean, some things are done in bad taste, but as long as the people who really mean it, then the rest of it is just collateral. I mean, the companies who are like, oh, now we're going to bring out an EVH tribute this or whatever. It's like, yeah, okay, whatever. I'll just ignore that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I'm far too sensitive to this kind of thing. I'm far too. I let myself be affected by things that you can just let wash over you. But I make moral choices in the sense that at the beginning of this conversation, I said I'm unqualified to talk about Eddie Van Halen because I have no frame of reference. But I don't know. There's some people that have genuinely been upset by this and have been crying for the past few days. And I'm not laughing at that. I'm laughing at the fact that it's so emotionally intense that it's beautiful. It's beautiful how much this has affected people on a level.
Yeah.
And that's wonderful, because I think I'm very much in touch with my feelings, and I believe people should, and that's where kind of art comes from. And that's why when I believe that someone does something for profit, or for recognition, or for getting the clicks or whatever, that's why it upsets me so much, because it's playing with emotions and playing with a legacy. And I don't know, I just don't like things that seem wrong to me. And I could crusade against it and mention a few names, but it doesn't help.
No,
as you said, let me just finish that if you don't mind. Sorry.
Please.
As you said, ignore those, or you're paraphrasing now. As long as the people that mean what they mean, let them do that, and the other ones can just,
bugger off,
go away.
Yes.
Please, sorry for getting on my soapbox.
No, sometimes we need to do that, especially in these heightened times where the world is going to pot and everything's going wrong bit by bit by bit. I mean, like I said, I've not been as affected by Eddie's passing as a lot of people, but earlier this year, Neil Peart from Rush passed away.
Yeah.
That really affected me because I've always been a huge Rush fan, and I can, quote almost anything that they've done. That's my thing. So I can relate to the people who have been affected very much. Like, our mate Jamie Humphries, who you mentioned, he, when we were at 42 Gear Street, he walks around in EVH t-shirt, EVH flip-flops, which he has genuinely worn out, Like this is before anything happened with any of this. I could have if I'd met him and you said who's the biggest EVH fan in the world, I'd have said Jamie Humphries, and he's been absolutely destroyed by this because, well, as we say, I mean it's a big thing to happen, and Jamie's now said that like there was supposed to be at one point the masterclass series that people like Hans Zimmer are doing. There was a plan in the works for Edward Van Halen to do one of those. But we now know it never came to fruition for whatever reason. And Jamie was, as far as we know, involved. I mean, that's how big of an EVH fan he is he got himself involved in writing the masterclass of how to be Eddie Van Halen. You don't get much more of a fan than that. And yeah, that's yeah. I really feel for him because that's the closest thing to losing, a close friend or a family member that you're going to get that is somebody who you are not blood related to. Because especially as musicians, I don't know if you have a similar thing to me, but some of your musical idols must have as strong, or if not stronger, emotional connection to you than some of your friends or even some of your family.
Absolutely. This is where I am qualified to say some stuff. Music means so much to me, and the people that make that music, the artists, the creators. I've spent more hours with some of my favorite music than I have with some of my family, or some of my closest friends, or I feel closer to certain artists and like listening to the music, just being in bed or something and falling asleep, listening to music. I would feel more understood. And I think maybe that's, you feel in a place where you feel comfortable. And that's what I think is happening with people that have lost EVH. Even if they haven't listened to him for years, there's that place that he created, or a musician or an artist or someone creates.
Yeah.
And you feel at home, you feel understood, you don't feel alone, you feel like you belong to something. And I can name, like, for me, I was growing up with Queen, and when Freddie Mercury passed in 91, I was 10 years old, and I wasn't really old enough to know what it meant. I just knew that it affected my dad so much, who was so very, very masculine and, not really open about his feelings, but he hardly spoke for like a week.
Wow.
And and that I was again indirectly affected more because I saw what happened to my dad with Freddie Mercury, and then for my experience was Kurt Cobain in 94.
Right.
But I was only really into Nirvana for a few months, and then he died.
Wow.
So, but of course the whole world changed. My whole world, this little bubble, this teenage world changed because I finally found somewhere that I belonged. Someone spoke to me, and I thought, my goodness, something spoke to me. So to take this conversation away from Van Halen, it's more about music and the connections that people make.
Yeah.
And how important music is. So if anything, if I can take anything from this, it's social media was full of politics and American politics and British politics and COVID-19 and how terrible things are. And then Eddie Van Halen dies and everything changes. And I know Lee Fuge, for example, is in the chat, and he was posting about how certain politicians were saying that musicians need to retrain and get jobs elsewhere.
Yeah.
Which is a whole other subject and preposterous.
Oh, yeah.
But then a day, and because what that's saying is that music doesn't matter. It's saying that artists are unnecessary. It's saying that there is not a future in which you need to exist as a musician. So retrain and take a different career path, and it's your fault for going down that path in the first place. That's how I translate that. And then the day after, Eddie Van Halen passes, or the news breaks that he's passed, and my little world there, my Facebook, my Instagram, my social media world had a totally different message and now has a different energy to it.
Yeah.
Um, and it seems to have brought people together. And it's the opposite, of music doesn't matter. It couldn't be more so. That people are, crying for days on end. Grown men are crying for days on end, and other people are telling us music doesn't matter.
Mm.
You can be further from being right.
Yeah. There's been quite a few of these events over the last few years. It's been very sad, but another perspective that I think passes us by a lot is that time goes a lot faster than most of us are really kind of aware of. It's terrible that what's happened to Eddie Van Halen, but he was 65 years old. I mean, there are some people who passed away over the last few years who are like in the 70s, 80s, 90s even. These are our heroes from being in our teenage years, and I'm not a teenager anymore. And it's also a part of kind of adjusting to life in a way, is accepting that those older than us are not going to be with us forever. As morbid as that sounds, I mean, it's something to come to terms with. That it's a little bit of a heavy thought.
It is, especially with, like, for me being in Austria away from my family. There's a high possibility I may never see my grandparents again.
Wow.
Which is not the kind of thing that I want to be bringing up on a podcast that should be full of joy. But as we're on this subject, the world is different these days, and things do move fast every day. So social media, for example, you're scrolling through events.
Yeah.
You're looking through, things are happening. And I was only thinking a few days ago about when I was younger, that weeks would pass and nothing seemed to change.
Yeah.
And I almost said, and summers lasted forever. Oh my goodness. And summers lasted forever.
It's March the 292nd today. Yes.
Freddos were 10p. But what I mean is that even though we feel that life isn't moving, actually the input we're getting is extremely fast. And I'm not sure if my tiny little human brain can cope with the speed of information and changes of emotion that are happening these days. But it's interesting. I see my kids, and they're dealing with it a lot better than I am, because that's all they know.
Yes. It's funny, the bigger your world gets, the more it can affect you, I suppose. Yeah. It's I mean, time's going by so quickly. I distinctly remember about 3 weeks ago, my daughter was born. She's now 2.5.
Okay. All right. Sorry.
Yes.
I was about to say, she was just jumping around the bedroom.
Yeah, exactly. That's the joke, but it's kind of, I say it as a joke, but it's a perception of time thing. That it really, everything's going so fast that I say things like, "Oh, I've been a video editor for 10 years," and I'll look at myself and go, "No, you just made that up. No, look at the calendar. No, really, you were doing it before then. Oh, wow." Things like that, where the concept of time is just flying away from us. And it's.
I listen to the Scrubs podcast. It's a rewatch show from Zach Braff and Donald Faison. And it's extremely entertaining. And they rarely talk about the show. They just hang out and some friends chatting. And then they keep saying the show was 20 years ago. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And then people ask me how long I've been living in Austria. And it'll be 10 years next July. So 9.5 years. And I remember very clearly coming over to Austria in a transit with my dad, bringing my guitars over.
Right.
And it's, I think, it's probably 3 years ago. So I've got my daughter's 5 years old, and it's insane how fast life goes. And to take it back to Eddie Van Halen, I hope that something we learn from this is that people matter and music matters, and music makes a difference. And if you're at all affected by the death of an artist, then it's very sad, but also please take from that music moves you and music changes, and think of a world without music. And that's what some people are either predicting or promoting. in these times, and how awful that is, and how wrong that is, and how worse off the world will be, both spiritually and financially. Because I can only talk about the numbers for the UK, but you're talking almost £6 billion a year for the music industry in the UK.
Yeah.
They don't promote that. They don't promote that number. They promote the fact that musicians need support financially because no one's got any jobs, and it's not the case.
Yes, this is a very unique time that we live in. Hopefully, never to be seen again. But yeah, hopefully we'll all get through it, and music will find a way no matter what. But yeah, hopefully we get more support for the people who are in the eye of that storm right now. Because that's what's needed right now, I think, is the support for those people who, up until it's like, oh, get a real job. Yeah, these people were working 5 or 6 days a week doing what they do up until the thing happened. And having been a touring musician, I can tell you for nothing, that's a real job. When you do 10 to 12 hours a day, 300 to 400 miles of driving, you set up your own equipment, you perform your own show, put down your own equipment, and drive another 300-400 miles. Yeah, tell me that's not a full day's work every day.
And also argue to get paid 70 quid,
Yes, yeah, there is that as well.
On stage 2 hours, that's £35 an hour. Right, okay.
Yeah.
God, I could moan. I could moan a lot if I wanted to. Is there anything else we can talk about? Because I feel I've exhausted my moaning for the moment.
I think that's kind of we it's a bit of a heavy topic, but do we have any questions in the chat that do not any questions for Andy, because I'm here every week? Any questions that are a bit of a lighter topic, just to end on something?
Yeah, I want to say hello to a few friends if I may.
Please do.
I see the Bommel in the chat. Hello, Bommel. I see Poo Ninjas in the chat. Hello, Poo.
Poo Ninja's not a real person though, so that's fine.
That's true, and he lives on the moon.
He does indeed.
Lee, of course, was, or here is there. I see some new names, and to go against what I was just saying about taking opportunity, go and subscribe to my channel.
Yeah, please do. Andy the Guitar
I'm joking. I'm joking. If you're interested in any of the rubbish that I've sprouted tonight, then I sprout more of it on my channel. And if it at all affects you, then do what you want.
Good stuff.
Nicola has asked, "What's your favorite guitar and pedal?" My goodness, what a blast to begin with. I can only say historically, because it changes so often, because gear is a constant flow in my life. But there's several things that I always come back to. I have to define pedals as fuzz as the category, and the Big Muff has a big place in my heart. The old pedal that made that I could never hear myself in a band, and couldn't figure out why, because it cuts all those mids, as Adam was saying earlier. Which is how I discovered wah fuzz. Because I thought, if I kick this wah pedal in, I can suddenly hear myself again. So that's how I kind of found a sound that kind of became my sound.
Right.
It was through not understanding, but using my ears. And then guitar-wise, I'm more a Fender scale player than I am anything else. Doesn't have to be Fender, but I'm a massive fan of the Maybach Albatross, which is an SG style guitar. I have a Fender custom shop telly that's amazing. It is like, I do see guitars as tools, but also as toys. So my Ibanez AZ is the best tool I own, because it's the one guitar I would take everywhere with me, but it isn't the one guitar I'd want to own.
Huh.
I've just recently, Adam, bought this. This might interest you.
A ukulele? Oh, a Hofner, the Beatles bass.
Yeah,
a Hofner violin bass.
63.
Oh, is it an actual vintage, or is it a reissue?
No, it's a reissue vintage 63.
Right, okay.
I bought it to flip it, but it's going to stay here for a little bit. So that's
good fun, those things.
I love the tone. I have a Chinese Rogue copy, and it's amazing fun. It does one thing, but it does it well,
Yeah, absolutely. A question from Chris. Do you still have the Squire Mustang Bullet?
I'm so glad I put these stands in my studio today.
Hey! Wait. I think Chris is looking at modifying something. Yeah.
So what I did with this one is this was terrible out of the box. It had it gave me splinters.
Really?
So
Wow.
I learned a lot on this guitar, and without this guitar, my YouTube channel would not have grown with the speed that it did. And suddenly, people were coming to my channel for this guitar. I've got locking tuners on it. I've got string trees that aren't actually doing much. I've got a bone nut that I put in that now the super glues come out, so the nut moves when I bend strings. I clean the frets. I put a kill switch in. I cut the screws here.
Yeah.
Because they were, to intonate it, they were so long it was actually touching the string.
Wow.
Which had such an influence on the guitar market that Fender Squier started supplying shorter screws, and that was at least in part due to my video where I complained about the screws.
Wow. Power to the people.
Yeah, I controversially did not change the pickups, which I keep getting messages about now these days. Why don't you change the pickups and that? And that's because I love how crap they are. As a grunge Nirvana fan, it's like, well, it does what I want it to do. It doesn't do anything else. It does that, you know?
Yeah. Well, if any pickup companies are interested in paying Andy to change them, that may change his mind.
Yes, but not in that guitar. I have a second, kind of exclusive for you, mate.
Oh, hello.
A second Square Mustang in Sparkle Red that I recently purchased.
Nice.
And I'm going to change the pickups in that and then compare it to that.
Being a grunge fan, I'm surprised you didn't get it in Sonic Blue.
I like red.
Oh,
and
fair enough.
Sparkle red, you know.
But
yeah, Sonic Blue, yeah.
That works for you.
So yes, I very much use that guitar. I love the sound. I love the feel. I love how small it is and how ridiculous it is when it's on my body.
Yes, you're not exactly a small man, and that is not a large guitar.
It's preposterous.
So the last one to probably end on is probably a really nice happy note is from Marty. What are you most happy with right now in your life?
Goodness. Probably, to be sickeningly sweet, how proud I am of my children when they are entertaining themselves playing together. My son is 3, my daughter is 5. Just hearing them talk, and in this funny mix of Austrian and English, and there's these mixed sentences. So, kannst du mir bitte helfen? And putting German grammar with English words, and it's so cute. But it's these little worlds they create, and as you'll probably attest to, Adam, being a parent is the hardest thing one can do.
Oh yes,
but the most rewarding. You know, it's insane. It's insane how different life is with a child in it.
Yes. It's as a really good little example of that. Today, Ivy wouldn't sleep at nap time, so I put her in my bed. I was also exhausted, so I tried to get a bit of a nap next to her, and I wake up 5 minutes later with her literally grabbing my hair and pulling it out. So I have less hair at the front now than I did yesterday, because child.
She's 3, did you say?
2 and a bit. Yeah.
2 and a bit. Okay, yeah, that is tough.
Yeah.
My 3-year-old is tough now, but 2.5, almost 3, man.
She's not quite old enough to understand the sentences of explaining why you're being a little git.
So to answer the question, I'm very happy with my family life, and actually being at home during these times in 2020 has helped. It didn't help for a long time because in my relationship, we were not used to me being around all the time.
Right.
And I think she got quite annoyed by me being around. You know, I was always off doing guitar stuff, always doing, being away, you know, making something somewhere or gigging at night and, you know, whatever, or a little tour or something. And when that stopped, suddenly the relationship changed. And life is life comes in waves. Life's a roller coaster, you might say, Adam. And I'm just going to ride it.
Just got to ride it.
I'll leave you with that.
And now that song's going to be in my head for days. Thanks, Andy.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching. It's time to bring the podcast to a close. 40 minutes over time, as per bloody usual. And yeah, thanks, Andy, for sticking out for this rather long podcast. It's been a lot of fun.
You're welcome. I've really enjoyed it. We went to places I didn't think we'd go, and I'm glad we did. I hope I didn't offend anybody or, upset anybody with my words. But I had a jolly good time. I wish I hadn't been so tired. I could have given more. I'm not happy with my performance.
I could have done more. Yes, very Schindler's List. Let's not go there. That's a bit of an odd reference to end the podcast on.
Yeah, especially as I'm in a basement in Austria. So.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next week, Thursday, 8 p.m. See you later.
Hey everyone, that might be the end of the video, but if you fancy carrying on this conversation, we have a Discord server, link is in the description. We're also on Patreon, which is something you can really help us with. We also are on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter at Hop Hole Studios. See you there.